Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the country's most successful leaders and how they elevate their business and their teams. Please welcome our host, Alison DePauli.
Welcome everyone to a fresh episode of Raising the Bar with Alison DePauli, where we talk to CEOs who are raising the bar in their businesses. And today I have a trifecta of a guest. I have Mike Riley with me. Mike is a second generation business owner. He works with his father in a physical therapy business, or he did. He is the co-founder of the Sustainable Health Index, and he does something that I love, which those of you that know me know what that is. He helps employers get the data they need to tailor their claims spend more effectively. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I am so happy to have you here.
Yeah, Allison, thank you for the opportunity.
So the reason that I wanted to talk to you is most of our audience is privately owned businesses, generally founded or a second or a third generation business owner. And I wanted to talk to you about what it's like to work with your dad in a business. I did that for 8 years and I don't anymore. But you've been doing that for a long time. How has that changed over time as you've grown a little bit older?
So I feel today very blessed to be in the position that I'm in. I'm very lucky. My dad is a finest specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet. That's what I tell people.
All right.
I want to grow up. I want to be like him. And I started out down that path. He's a physical therapist, my father. Started a private practice company in 1981 in Southern Illinois. We're just outside St. Louis on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River. And my dad used to leave and drive all over Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Missouri. He'd leave on Monday and he'd come back on Friday. And it was he just worked so hard to grow his company. And he started out doing, we would do contracting with nursing homes. Okay. And so he would be the therapist and he would hit all these nursing homes in every small town. He knows every back road in Southern Illinois. And I think, I'm the oldest of four. And I think it started to get to him that he was missing a lot of our lives. And so he said, you know what, I got to figure out a different way to have a successful business and start to be a little more active in the life of my family. And he made a decision to start trying to build relationships with hospital systems. And so today we contract services for physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy with hospitals. Yep. And we do their inpatient, their outpatient, their nursing home, their home health, their skilled nursing. So we run the whole rehab gamut, and he's grown it from an organization of 2 people to almost 400.
Yep.
And when I graduated, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a physical therapist. I got hurt. I went to a therapist. I thought she hung the moon. She was amazing. She was able to help me through a very challenging knee injury during my senior year of basketball. And I said, you know what, that's something I could aspire to be. I went to PT school. I graduated from Bradley University in 1999. And I immediately, I never had a resume, ever. I never made a resume. I said, Dad, I'm out of school. Where do you want me to work? And so he did a really good job, putting me in positions where I was going to learn a lot early on, right? So I started in outpatient and I got my feet wet in outpatient. He said, okay, now you're going to do 6 months of home health, and now you're going to do 6 months of inpatient, and now you're going to do 6 months of rehab. And while each one of those changes that he, kind of forced my hand to learn those different disciplines, each of them were frustrating to begin, but ultimately it's helped me in my position today where I help him with business development and, staff development and things of that nature.
Which was your favorite? Which place of therapy?
I think outpatient, because people get better, there's some challenging disciplines, right? When you're coming into somebody's house after a stroke, or you're working in a nursing home where, people are, towards the end of their lives and dealing with very, very serious medical issues. I like to have fun. Outpatient is really fun. Not to say that those other disciplines aren't. But then in outpatient as well, I was able to, I think, understand the business model a little bit more and help our organization grow in a way that maybe I wouldn't have if I had stayed in those other disciplines.
How has your relationship with your dad changed? I know I went to work for my dad when I was about 25, and we started out as, I would call him Harlan, which is his name, and he wouldn't answer because he didn't recognize him. And we have evolved. And while I don't work with my dad anymore, I'm in a very similar business. And now we have completely different discussions, and we have a lot more, well, you know better than I do at this point, which is true, but it's still a wonderful sounding board. I feel very fortunate to have it.
Yeah. So I recall very vividly when I was about 32, I'd been working for about 9 years.
Yep.
And I recall a conversation of him saying, look, you're not going to get this company because you're my son. I've worked too damn hard.
Yep.
Okay. And, that was probably a time in my life where I needed to grow up a little bit. And he gave me the opportunity to go back to school and get my doctorate. So I went back to school in 2013. So it's been almost 10 years ago now. 2012, 2013, I went back to school and I completed a doctor of physical therapy. And a lot of times when people go and they get this doctor of physical therapy, they're doing, they're working on clinical skills and, applying different principles and research and things like that. I went back and did kind of a MBA type of doctoral program that was specifically designed for physical therapy practice owners. Okay. And I was opened to an entirely new world of PTs that I didn't know existed that were really trying to raise the bar and had practices that were outperforming and outgrowing and doing some really amazing things. And so I got hooked up with a group of people, and in completing my coursework, I had the ultimate, test fishbowl, right? I could do anything. and he gave me the freedom to do it. I'd bring back an idea and he'd say, no, that ain't gonna work. And I'd bring back another idea. He'd say, okay, go try that one. And so he really let my leadership skills start to blossom after I, but there had to be a foundation, of work that I had to put in. I feel like I'm kind of a natural leader, but I really needed something a little bit more. And so I started to do, what do you call them? Groups.
Mastermind groups?
Yes, it was exactly what it was called. Thank you.
Aren't they fabulous?
And yeah, I was with Mastermind group that was probably 12 people all over the country. We met once a month. We had content that we had, and this is what I needed, Allison. The reason I mentioned it, I needed accountability. That's exactly what I needed. I mean, it's really easy, I think, to sit back while things are going good and rest on your laurels a bit. But when the rubber hits the road and, things are always going to go wrong. I mean, that's like, it doesn't matter how strong your resume, how good your leadership is, if you can't, it doesn't matter how good a company you have, things are always going to go wrong. And so I was able to lean on some people in that group. And we did a ton from 2013 to 2016. We took a lot of the principles that I learned in school and started to implement them. And we grew about 2.5 times in size in those 4 years.
That's fantastic and very satisfying, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. And so there was that moment where, my dad looked at me and I looked at him and he's like, you could just tell that the respect was there. Right. And I think that's, obviously we strive for our parents' approval throughout our lives. But when you're providing, for your family and you have a job and you're working with your parent, yep. It's a completely different dynamic. But once we got there, his office is literally 9 feet away from me. If he were here,
I've heard that.
Yeah. If he was here in the office, we're very transparent now. We have a very healthy relationship. I spend, Sunday afternoon at my dad's house cooking dinner for the rest of the 20 people in our family. I mean, it is a very, very cool place to be. And I am the only child that ended up going into this profession, right? I'm the only therapist in our family. My brother's a financial advisor, so he works with our company's 401k. My sister's a teacher, and my youngest brother is a nurse practitioner. So, I'm really the only one that's in this family business. Although all of our family will benefit from it.
Yes. So we were all in the family business at some point, which meant that is all we talked about.
Yeah.
We did not have a good division of work and home life. And we all ate dinner together almost every night because nobody cooks. So it's like, well, where are we going tonight? I mean, it was a little crazy, but it worked for us, right? And then, I moved to Texas, but that's a different story. But there was real value in that. And I think the things that you learn, you will never learn another way. You will never learn that except working for a family member, I think.
Right.
And that's sort of how you want the business to run and those intimate leadership lessons, because I think you have to learn to lead, right? And you have to learn that. I don't care how natural born a leader you are, you still have to learn to lead.
Well, and you had to be okay with failing too. I mean, he really allowed me to fail forward numerous times. And he was such a great example in terms of, we had this company, and his mantra is, from a therapy perspective, right? Physical therapy world, there's a lot of big physical therapy companies. And a lot of times they will treat people that maybe don't necessarily need to be treated, right? They answer to stakeholders, shareholders. And we've lost a lot of contracts on principle, right? With nursing homes and various agencies that we've worked with over the years who are looking to increase their profits. Yep. And one of the things when we do an engagement survey with our employees is, I just like working for a company that has integrity. And so that's always been kind of he's very principled in that regard. And he's always willing to walk away from a deal if he doesn't feel like it fits in line with our ethos.
That is one of the reasons that I think private equity is so bad for healthcare, is I think that there are many people like your dad and many people like you, but once you take that personal out of a business, and at 400 people, that's not the mom and pop shop down the street, but it is still run by a person. And you can make decisions like that, but when you have other stakeholders, you can't.
For sure. I mean, I hope that, private equity and venture capitalists, they've produced some great things. I just don't know from a healthcare perspective, like you said,
where that lies,
where that's what I want to be part of that. I mean, I think you hang out with a pretty influential group of people that are in the know about better ways to do things.
Yes.
And
I'm very fortunate.
At least alternatives, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be this. We need to innovate. And to innovate, we need to keep talking about new ideas. The problem with a lot of new ideas is they just get shot down because the status quo is just fine.
Yes.
Go ahead.
People often ask me who my biggest competitor is, and I will tell you it's the status quo. It's not any other person, and I suspect many of my peers will tell you the same. So, because not everything is right for every company, but that is a perfect segue into the Sustainable Health Index, because you can identify what is perfect.
Well, so my dad, I got this idea. I'm as a therapist, I'm waiting for Allison to fall off a ladder and walk into my office
Which has happened.
Before I'm valuable to somebody. I hated waiting around for, the stroke to happen, the neurological disease to develop, the, fall from the ladder, whatever the case may be. I basically had to sit back and wait for people to come to me.
Yep.
But certainly we can go out, we can let the public know that we're there, but I didn't feel like I was having the impact that I wanted. Okay. Somebody comes in, I get their ankle moving again, but I wasn't understanding the full context of the individual in front of me. I didn't have a way to, they left my office after an episode of care, and they still were 50 pounds overweight with 3 chronic diseases and a list of medications a mile long. And I felt like, man, I want to have more of an impact with larger numbers of people. And I heard this lady speak at a national conference for physical therapy. Her name was Jennifer Gamboa.
Okay.
Jennifer, and I was so enthralled. She created the Sustainable Health Index. Okay. It didn't come from my brain. I heard this girl talk. And so I stalked her out at her next conference. Literally, I flew to Dallas. She got off the stage and I said, my name's Mike Riley. I think we have an opportunity to do something really cool, but I need your help to do it. And so we came together after about a 20-minute conversation. I had an organization in Alabama, and it was 2,500 manufacturing employees. They made rugs. And we went to this organization with the Sustainable Health Index to try to help them understand where to focus their resources on this group of people. The whole basis, behind the Sustainable Health Index is to kind of get like this minimum data snapshot of the causes and conditions impacting health. And so Jen developed these questions. She had it scientifically validated, and uses some really cool biostatistician things that are way over my head, to help us come up with risk stratification. And so now, instead of waiting for that one person to fall off a ladder, I'm able to look at this data set with my partner and offer an organization a way to influence the environment. They don't have to wait for one of their employees to fall off a ladder before we start trying to make it a great place to work.
Yep.
Because I think one of the things, I apologize.
No worries.
That is, I have never have this phone plugged in, and I just, I think that people want to really transform the workplace, especially post-COVID. Yes. There's all the talk around stress, all the talk around loneliness. I mean, there's a global psychosis going on right now, and we're not really good at talking about our stuff.
No, we are not. But we are very good at acting it out. For sure.
And so when we're trying to transform this like profit maximizing system back into that purpose-driven system that somebody started the organization for, we have fear that we're going to jeopardize the future of the business or my own career if I don't, if I just stick with the status quo, none of that stuff.
That'll be okay.
Yeah. So I really want to help organizations create like a microcosm of the world that they want. Right. And to do that, you need some data, and you get, you assemble this multidisciplinary team, including experts outside of your own skill set. I mean, that's where you really start to pick up, and empathy is a huge thing. And I love working with clients. I love exploring their goals and their frustrations, and really examining their current systems so that we can identify the causes of those frustrations. And healthcare is the second biggest, line item they have behind labor. And my dad, he sits there every year, and our broker comes in and says, oh, it's only going up this percent. It's only going up that percent. And my dad wants to come across the table.
I understand that you are starting to take control of that cost.
We are starting to have those conversations. Yes.
Yes. And it took a little time, right?
Well, the devil,
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's very easy, and I don't know what we are, where we are at, where we really have an opportunity to save. We haven't dug in. We haven't done the homework we needed to do, diving into some of that data. So all that to say, when he let me form the Sustainable Health Index with Jen. Now we have 5 years under our belt of working with organizations in different, really, really different, what do you call it? Like from manufacturing to healthcare industries, different industries. Thank you. And we've had loggers right? Most dangerous job in the world. We've had bargemen, we've had students, we've had healthcare workers, we've had manufacturing workers. So
I want you to tell the story of the bargeman, because I think that is one of your more remarkable cases.
Yeah, it was interesting. Our broker, who loves us, said, hey, I want you guys to come to this barge company with me. And he sold us, and he said, look, you guys need to give me 2 years, and I need the SHI data to help us create this benefits program for you. So we go into this, and we talk at SHI, we talk about the fish, the water, and the bowl.
Yep.
Okay. And the fish is just the individuals. And we need to be really good at managing individuals, and it's trying to understand those individuals' knowledge and their attitudes and their skills. But those fish are part of a school of fish, right? And that's the community, the social networks, corporate institutions, community relationships. And then we have the environment, and that's the physical environment, accessibility, policies, laws, and regulations. And so what we are able to do with our index is help people understand what's going on in the water in the bowl. All right. And so it's not that we're the only answer. We need to take care of fish, but we also have to address the water in the bowl. So we go to this organization, we go to this barge company, they've got 500 bargemen, right? And these folks are on a boat for 30 days, off a boat for 30 days, on a boat for 30. I mean, that's their life. Mm-hmm. And we got an amazing set of data on them. And we were able, with our data, we look at disease risk, we look at fitness, we look at movement quality, we look at nutrition, and we look at stress, high level. Mm-hmm. And then we talk to the organization about it. We say, okay, hey, look, we have this opportunity. And one of the opportunities was there was no working exercise equipment on the boat. There was a room on the boat that had exercise equipment, but none of it worked.
Nothing worked.
Okay. So there's not a better example of a fishbowl in the world than a barge. I mean, literally, you were on that bowl for 30 days, in that bowl for 30 days. What can I do as an organization to understand how to help them from a fitness perspective? And we talked to the folks and, man, just get us a bike that works. How about a couple iPads with access to some videos on them? A set of weights, 1 through 10. Here we go. So we talked about that. We also understood that this group was 100% sleep deprived, right? Their shifts were 6 hours on, 6 hours off, 6 hours on, 6 hours off. And, businesses can make purposeful living easier or harder. Okay. And that's what we really help people uncover. It's like, look, you want to make it easy, but what your policy is making it hard. And so we talked to them about sleep deprivation. We talked to them about changing the shifts. And the response that we got was, that's industry standard.
Okay. And
to make it right, and so then the last one was nutrition. And what we found out on the boats, that they were literally 1 graham cracker away from having a s'mores available at every meal to their people. And the reason that happens is because they fired all the cooks. All the chefs were fired 3 years ago. 27 full-time employees swept away, saved, 27 full-time employees. You're saving millions of dollars on expenses and, costs and benefits and everything. But their diabetes had shot through the roof.
Yep.
Right. So
because
we talked
nobody
about
knows how to cook.
How do we get fresh vegetables on a boat? I mean, it's on a river. Yeah, but it's not on an ocean. We don't have to fly to them. They do stop along the way, all that to say, it was a very interesting conversation. They were really excited about understanding where they might be able to make a move, but they ultimately decided to just stay with the status quo. And they have a really amazing nurse navigator. Mm-hmm. And that was their strategy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to work with that nurse navigator who takes one individual fish at a time and tries to address their problems while all along not having the impact to address the water in the bowl that they're living in.
Yep.
And a year later, they fired us and their cost went up $5 million.
Amazing.
So I'd love to go back. I really would.
I think it's amazing how some employers kind of take a step back and make those holistic decisions, and some do not. And when you can tie it so closely to dollars, I think oftentimes you can have a different conversation like you had.
Right.
And it's not always going to be successful, but I think the impact you can have is remarkable.
Yeah. And we have a client right now that's doing just that. I mean, they've taken a couple of the pearls out of the data and they've acted on them with great response from their workforce.
Yes.
And the cool thing was these are not really expensive interventions, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times people have great resources in place, but employees just don't know that they exist. And so messaging around that and
yes.
continually to help people understand how to get the most out of the benefits that they do have is one of the things that we partner with organizations to do as well.
I had this great boss when I was a carrier rep, and who he gave me, after he heard me one day, he's like, okay, come here. And I was like, uh-oh. And he said, I'm going to give you, I was taught this, I'm going to teach you this, the rule of eights. People have to hear something more than one time. So you are not allowed to yell until you get to the 8th time. On the 8th time, you have my permission to yell. Mm-hmm. And I've taken that into what we do and in how we communicate people and how we ask our HR and our leadership teams to communicate to people, because good Lord, this is not their job. They're just trying to live their lives. And it is remarkable how, when you can change the conversation, which you do with a sustainable health index, you're not telling somebody that they have to stop this, start this, whatever. It's just like, hey, here, what about this? And what about this? And what about this on a regular basis, and how that can help people do something that they don't know how to do. You tell people they have diabetes, they don't know what to do, right?
Correct. Teach them to fish.
Teach them to fish and give them a small thing.
Yeah. And it is hard. I mean, some really good companies have really good intentions and just don't understand some of the roadblocks they put up for their folks to behave in a healthy manner. Mm-hmm. And it's not out of spite, or it's not wanting to do it. They just don't know, what you don't know can really impact you in tremendous ways. And there's so much at stake. That's the other thing. There's so much at stake. I mean, just as an owner and potentially the heir apparent to a really beautiful organization of people, there is so much at stake. And we hear it all the time. Our health insurance costs too much, and I couldn't go here, but I had to go here. And it's just, if there's a way to help the community, with multiple light touches like you're describing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very simple strategy to implement. You just got to be willing.
And if you can keep somebody out of the doctor's office, not keep them out of the doctor's office, excuse me, that is the wrong thing to say.
That's right.
You can keep them in the doctor's office for a reasonable amount of routine care. Then you can forestall a lot. You're never going to forestall it all, right? But that's what insurance is for. But if you can take somebody who's pre-diabetic and leave them there, or reverse that, or if you can take somebody who's having a back issue and alleviate that before they have surgery, or if you can take somebody who's under a great amount of stress and teach them how to manage that more effectively, if you stop one heart attack a year in a 400-person population, that's a big deal.
It is. I just hope it's not costly to stop that.
I think you do a pretty good job of the start, and you've got some pretty good innovations that help communicate that. And then, I am not the only one in the country that does what I do. There's, a few of us, and we'll all pick it up from there.
That's right.
So I think what you are the spear, right? And I've never seen anything like the Sustainable Health Index, where you literally get that data from employees in a really low, unobtrusive way. And then you can take that back and create a plan. Yeah. And we're big on 3 to 5 year strategic plans, and advisors who know what they're doing are all the same. We may do things differently, but we all have 3 to 5 year plans for our clients. You can shorten that curve and you can make it sharper.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We want 3 to 5 years is just a perfect life cycle for us, but we really want to know 6 months after we get the data whether or not we're moving in the right direction. So we re-index and we get you another set of data, and we can continue to do that and be a part of changing that conversation versus, hey, here comes renewal. Hey, here comes renewal. And we want to be able to make it less transactional.
Yes.
Right. And really partner with the groups that we're working with. So,
but I think you do a remarkable job of that. And I think that the things that you uncover are not the typical things. I mean, I have a wonderful client and they do a health fair every year, and there's candy and junk. And I'm like, could you just get a juice guy in here? And they're like, a juice guy. I'm like, a juice guy, a lady, a whatever. There's 29 juice companies here. Let's try some juice.
One of our organizations, their data showed us that they were hurting physically and mentally. And the reason they were hurting mentally had to do with death and serious illness impacting them in the last year. No doubt, right? This is it's a hospital system in the South, and they were really hit hard. And so all of a sudden you give the information to the C-suite and you say, look, we're hurting physically. We've got a way to handle that. But they're hurting emotionally too because of death and serious illness. That is not something that is going to show up in claims data. That you're going to be able to make a strategy. 10% of your
heart attacks are going to be that, right?
That's right. So they came up with a really great solution, and they have a walk and talk group that meets twice a week and walks around the campus, and we give them a question and just say, talk about your experience in the past year dealing with a sick loved one. And we just give people a place to take, hey, let's take a little walk. We have one of the C-suite members that's all on board about trying to do what they can to support mental health, who goes with them. He gives 10 minutes twice a week and takes a walk with 4 or 5 employees, and it's been really well received.
I think that is a remarkable idea and is easily implemented and doesn't cost anything.
This is true. It doesn't cost a darn thing.
Exactly. And I think often, at least the C-suite leaders of our clients are very interested in how things impact their employees, but there's still a little bit of a divide. Well, I can't go ask. Well, no, you can't, but maybe you could do a walk and talk and let people talk to you.
That's right. We have, since we've started, nobody's ever told us, Allison, this is a horrible idea. This idea stinks. It's not, everybody says, oh, that sounds really neat. And then it comes down to like the rubber hits the road, right? Like, okay, let's start talking about rolling out the SHI to this group. And we talk about, what makes an idea more attractive and compelling, everything from the features and the benefits to the way it's communicated to the organization. But what we really run into is some friction. And so I get into this mindset of we have fuel, right? And, fuel is what we naturally think in terms of fuel. How can we sell this idea? And it's fuel amplifies friction. And when I talk about friction is like kind of that force that opposes change.
Yep.
And it's difficult to spot. It hides below the surface and it drags ideas down. And that's a lot of times what keeps people from making a really good choice. And a really good example I could give is seatbelts. When seatbelts came to the Senate in 1984, 83, right? Seatbelts are inherently a really good idea.
Yes, they are.
Save lives. But if you tell somebody to wear their seatbelt,
they're not doing it.
There were people cutting seatbelts out of their cars, showing up and screaming at people in court.
Yep.
So really what we help people focus on is ways to remove friction. And it's a mindset change. Usually we think in rah, rah, rah terms of fuel.
Yep.
But really what we help is uncover some frictions that people don't know exist with the data, and we work in kind of a back end way.
Yes.
So
but I think you put people at ease, right? You are not the HR team, right? You are just, so, and I think your engagement over time numbers show that people like it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no doubt. We also have inside the index, we're going to give those individuals some information, right? So they're going to get a heat map that shows their risk, and they're going to have information in the app that is around. And I say app, it's really a web-based platform. It can be accessed anywhere, but you have information on disease risk. You've got great videos around nutrition, fitness, movement quality, and stress. And we do, you don't have a resource for this, but we do. We can plug this in, and we can start to message around this in the community. Yep. So we do value the individual experience, but what we're really trying to do is help the organization tackle the water in the bowl.
Yes. And until the water in the bowl is tackled, the health claims are not going to be that much different. Your episodic costs can be reduced, but your overall costs are your overall costs.
Yeah, you have some great resources for individuals. And I always say you take that fish out of the water and you get them this great resource, and then you put them back in the same water.
Yep.
We usually take the fish out of the water, clean the water, and then put the fish back in. That's how you take care of a fish tank, but That's not how we do it with our organizations. But
yes. And we are at a little over half an hour, so we have a long episode today. So I think we will wrap it up there. But I enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for doing this with me,
Allison. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
For our listeners, we'll see you next time. If you like this episode, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe where you get your podcast, leave a review if you could. It helps spread the word, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Raising the Bar is powered by Altiqe Consulting, the country's leading independent expert in healthcare cost containment. Astute employers know there's a better way to offer health insurance, and we help them achieve it.